You're listening to Brandon Sports Talk, interviewing professional athletes and Paralympians and Olympians. And now for your professional athlete interview and your host, Brandon P.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Canada Alpine skiing Olympian Michael Janyk. How are you doing today?
Yeah, man, doing well, doing well.
That's good. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in competing in alpine skiing?
Oh, man, that was a while ago. Uh, I think for any athlete, well, sorry, probably not any athlete, but for myself and our family, we did a lot of sports growing up. That was a big thing for sure. Tennis, soccer, baseball, but skiing was, I guess a family sport. My grandfather. Um, was a ski racer for he was from Hungary at the time and raced for the University of Zurich. And then, my mom and her brothers, my uncles, were ski racers as well in Vancouver. My mom racing at events and camps with the national team. So I think that, that gets passed on whether you know it or not. And we skied as a family. Growing up, we would ski in Whistler, and being a competitive person, loving loving be outdoors, sport. It just became a natural outlet, um, and you know, I, I think I always wanted to be an athlete. Um, there were many. I played baseball quite a bit, uh, and I would have loved to be a baseball player. But I think at some point you realize that you have a natural ability in some area. And around 13, I was I recognized it was like, okay, I want to be a ski racer for Canada in the Olympics on the national team.
What was that like growing up and coming from being a third generation and representing Canada in alpine skiing?
Yeah, it doesn't hit you right away. I mean, growing up in a family that raced, and like I said, my older sister was on the. Or I have two sisters. My youngest skied, but not to a high level. And my older sister, I just chased, and my mom I chased for that matter, and so that was you know incredibly invigorating. It was super fun um, to have that as a kid. To be able to put your energy into something was incredible. And then as I got older, I realized that you know you realize the history of your family and getting to be able to do that um, kind of for everyone in a sense it gets pretty special, especially getting to race the 2010 Olympics in Whistler, knowing that my grandfather had been part of the bid committee, or I don't know, bid committee or the organizing committee that tried to get the 1968 Olympics to Whistler. So, being able to connect those dots and kind of meet friends, family friends through ski racing that knew my grandfather, that knew my mom, and hear those stories. It just, yeah, it just enriches the whole experience.
How was that experience like getting to race with your older sister, Brittany?
Yeah, Britt was pretty remarkable as an athlete, and we're similar in some sense, but different. Like she's a lot more quiet, but extremely competitive as well. And so I think the most unique thing was was having someone that I knew was going through the same thing and experiencing the same thing that I was. Because even, when you're on the road and you're racing in Europe for 3, 4 months of the year, and you could talk to your parents, and they have some understanding. But when I was able to talk to my sister and call her on a weekly basis and know that she felt the same things that I was feeling, I felt super fortunate, um, and lucky that we had that relationship. Um, and then, growing up, like it gave me someone to chase. It gave me someone to aspire to. It's gave me someone that routinely beat me as a kid, that fueled the fire. So that was, yeah, I think there's benefits and just super magical across all fronts.
What was that feeling like for you to make your first Canada national team for the first time?
Oh my gosh, I was 18 years old. Um, we, yeah, I think it really landed. I made the national team from my results from the year before, right? So you finish the season, the winter, and then you go into the spring, and the team's announced, and then we got called to Calgary, where um, where we do our physical testing for the team, and that was my first, you know, my first time it hit me that I was like, oh my God, this is the dream. This is what I've been going for. And so I remember getting to the University of Calgary. I drove out from Whistler with another buddy, or two other friends who had made the team. And we're walking the empty halls of the University of Calgary because it's summertime, classes are out, and we're going towards the kinesiology labs, where we're going to do the physical testing, the bike tests, and all that, the lab testing. And so we're walking the hallways, and it's really surreal. Your kind of body's tingling because you don't know what you're expecting, but you're so excited. And so we come through this dark room to get through to the where the lab testing is being done, and there's this like bright light coming from the door, and you hear this shouting, and there's obviously testing going on. And we come into the door, and there's the senior national team athletes. I mean, we were the development team, the junior team at the time, and the likes of Eddie Potovinsky, Allison Forsyth, Thomas Grandy, um, and Carrie Mullen, and they're doing, exerting themselves to the max. And I remember just standing there being like, did I just get a backstage pass to the best concert I could have asked for? So I definitely, there's moments where it's just so surreal. And then getting the opportunity to first put on the jacket, that was later in that fall. I mean, you feel, yeah, I'd be lying. It gives you a nice ego boost. You put the jacket on, you walk around the races, and there's a sense of for sure pride that comes with like, with that I made it, that achieving that level, and for sure there's so much more to go. But that in that little moment, as an 18-year-old kid, it's just, I don't know if you effing awesome.
Of course, how was that feeling like making that Olympic team in 2006 being your first Olympics?
Yeah, that was, the first Olympics is, um, it's it was pretty different than I expected. I mean, like I said, when I made the national team and you build up, and it was maybe because it was out of competition season and you could just let that emotion sink in and let you hit you, and like you're chatting with your buddies about it. And when I made the Olympic team, it was in the competition season. Um, I qualified a month before, I think, with my first top 10 result in World Cup in Schladming, or yeah, or later. No, sorry, in December. I had a 12th place. It was my second top 12. And so it was December. I was in the World Cup season, and then um, I uh, I was in the World Cup season, and then I get this note. You find out you've made the Olympics, and so you're excited. But it's like you can't let it sink in because um, you still want to achieve your results. And it's weird to say, it was a really nuanced balance because it's not how you make it up to be in your mind as a kid, that it's like this huge celebration. You're getting to hug your family. Like I didn't get to see my whole family until after the event. So I would say it's like a little subdued elation. Um, and it didn't really come out until after. I remember the closing ceremonies being like, oh my God, this is fucking unreal. Because we didn't get to do the opening ceremonies. We were away training like an hour and a half north of Torino. So it was a slow trickle, and then you're focusing on your event. We did get to go watch some hockey and some speed skating at the time before our event, which is the slaloms happens at the end of the 2 week event. So you're definitely waiting and waiting. But afterwards, it was, yeah, after that season, knowing what we achieved, it was to at least make the games and have that kind of dream realized was, yeah, it was pretty remarkable. Um, yeah.
How was that season like in 2009, going to the World Championship and winning the bronze medal?
There's a that was a comeback year for me. Um, I had in 2006, 2007 season, I had my best results. I had a World Cup podium, and I finished seventh overall in the World Cup slalom standings. So I was on this like major high. And then that next summer, I through dryland training had a herniated disc and missed the first two races of the year. That's the 2007, 2008 season, and actually fell from seventh in the world. And I finished in like, I don't know, 60 something. So when I came into that next year, I came in so hungry. I mean, like, you're so scared that this dream you just achieved was going to all be taken away from you, right? And you're like, the elbows are out again. You're like, fuck this, I can do it. And I remember feeling strong coming into that year. The back was doing pretty well. And I I was on Rossi at the time, and they came out with a new ski. That was the slant nose ski. And at the time they injected the hills with water. So I mean, they still do, and they've been doing it forever, but it was so icy. It was like the iciest conditions. And I remember those slant nose skis were so aggressive, and I got on them at the in the summer or the fall, and I was just like clicked, and I felt so good on my skis. And um the first opening NORAMs of that year, I remember winning back to back NORAMs by like a good margin and feeling like untouchable. Just like, you know, don't stop me. Let me at it. I just was so hungry going into that year. And then you have the balance of actually trying to finish on a World Cup, the nerves playing, and like starting from my first race, I think was bib 55, and I hadn't started from bib 55 in a few years, and so the first step was punching in there, was getting into the top 30, and you're just like you're frothing at the mouth, just like let me get in there, let me go, um, and so I slowly chipped my way forward, and I had some great races before that, leading into the World Championships, but nothing too crazy. Some top tens, and so we had some time off, and my teammate and I, Julian Cousineau, we went to Florence, Italy, for like a 5 day break before, or 4 day break before the World Championships, and I remember just like, okay, let's shut things down. Let's be total tourists. And he actually got super sick, which surprisingly, I can't believe I didn't, because we were rooming together in a, I don't know if you ever stayed in Italy, but the rooms are tiny with, little beds, but he was like deathly sick. But I forced him to get out. Went and walked the Duomo. We went and did like all, the Ponte Vecchia, did all the tourist stuff. Um, and so I had a little recharge, and that hunger I talked about from the start of the year was like just I was palpable. It was just wanted to go. And when we got to Val d'Isère in France, John Cachera just had already won by the time he'd won his gold medal in the downhill. So we had had some success, and I remember the day before, I just felt like in my body so ready. Like it just, there's moments when you feel athletically ready, and it's just about executing. And so the day of was steep track, the Fasta Belvoir in Val d'Isère, steep, icy. It was exactly what I was excellent at, and my ski setup was good for, but I was scared shitless. And so, but that's the beauty of performance, is like, I mean, for me, there's rare occasions when I'm not scared in the start, when a lot of time I have those nerves, and it's how I manage those. And on that day, it was like, I didn't have a great first run. I was in ninth. I was 2 seconds out, but I held back. And just everything for that second run is in ski racing, it's in slalom, in tech events, it's a combination of two runs, and they reverse the top 30. So I was starting, I don't know, what's the math on that? What did I start? 21st, 22nd? And in the second run. And I just knew I had to put one down. And I, I was able to execute one of the most perfect race plans I've ever done on one of the scariest hills I've ever skied. And I came to the finish with, in the lead, and waiting for the rest to come down. And I remember, like, out of the next 8 athletes, um, 5 skied out, and you're watching like one by one, like Benny Reich skis out, Johan Brolanius, like these guys who were at the top, Jean-Baptiste Grange, who is the by and far favorite. He skis out, and you're just like, is this going to happen? Is this happening? And the guy, my teammates, Trev White, Tom Grandy, their hands are on my shoulders. They're like, dude, this is happening. And then I think Johan Brolanius was in second after first run, and he skied out, which put me in the third place and guaranteed a medal. And it was just like, that's a career's worth of work for the coaches, for the team, to the first Canadian slalom skier or to win a world championship medal was, yeah, it was unreal.
Of course, how was that experience like getting to compete in your third Olympics and going to Vancouver and competing on home soil?
Yeah, so yeah, that's the next year. That would be my second Olympics. So yeah, 2010, and then 2014 my third. 2010, I would say was, again, just to I've someone said this. An athlete I was listening to years ago said, I think they had been to 4 Olympics, and they were like, it's having 4 kids. You can't choose your favorite. They just all bring different experiences, and the one in Vancouver was so unique to be not only home country, but like I grew up, 5 minutes from the finish line. Um, and so all your supporters, friends and family, it was it was so tough, um, to deal with those emotions, to deal with those nerves. I mean, now looking back, it's there's things maybe we would have done differently, but you don't know till you go through it. Um, so I think ultimately it was a strong race. I mean, I finished 13th, but I don't think the conditions did not lead to, and like the ski setup that was great the year before wasn't really working, and um, so it was a hard pill to swallow that I wasn't able to achieve the result that I had hoped for and aspired to, and um, but with that, to have my mom volunteering, and like to see her out of the start gate, on the side of the hill. My dad was volunteering in the finish. My sister raced to an incredible race, 6th place in the Super G, I think Super G or downhill. Um, all those other nuances. My friends being in the finish, were, you know, bought above and beyond anything. I mean, any athletic success would have been a bonus, but I would be misguided to discredit, all those special moments. And then, like the volunteerism, the volunteerism of those games still stands to be one of the most magical things I've ever experienced. How everyone just like, the slogan was with glowing hearts, and people really did just open their hearts, open the community, and it was like stardust was sprinkled onto the area, and everyone just kind of let go of their differences and celebrate it. So that was really cool thing to see. I mean, there's one. My buddy told me this story. He was walking down downtown Vancouver, and there's these kids skateboarding through the crowd and kind of being disruptive, and this cop stops them, this police officer, this RCMP officer, and he stops the kids, asks to hand over the skateboard, and you think, oh, okay, they're going to get a ticket or they're going to get their skateboard confiscated, and the cop, the police officer, puts the skateboard down and then skates himself around the crowd and then back and hands over the skateboard. And so you're like, everyone was just taken over by this like total sense of, uh, you know, community and national pride and togetherness.
Of course, what were some of your favorite memories and moments getting to compete alongside your sister in Vancouver?
Yeah, and in Vancouver, I mean, we were pretty separate. There was one during the competition, but we did get to do the opening ceremonies. Um, Not in Vancouver. They did. We were up in Whistler, and they did a quasi opening ceremonies, like a smaller one in Whistler. And I remember getting to it was last minute. They threw it together. They're like, anyone in Whistler, any Canadian athletes, show up at the Canada House, which was the public library. And my sister ended up coming, and my mom was there, and we got to walk from there through the village stroll to the village square, get on stage and kind of give a little, cheer, rah, rah to the home crowd together. So that was, walking through the village, holding the Canadian flag with her at our home games was super cool. It was pretty magical.
What was that experience like getting to go to Sochi and getting to compete?
Sorry, say that again.
What was that experience like getting to compete in your third Olympics and getting to go to Sochi?
Mm. Um, the third games was I almost felt more connected to like compete for Canada being so far away, which is weird to say. The emotions were so powerful in Vancouver, but actually at the closing ceremonies in Vancouver, before we got there, before we got on the bus with all the Canadian athletes, Clara Hughes gave a speech, a little impromptu speech to all of us, and was, talked about competing for our nation and that everyone here was an inspiration. Everyone that you know takes a chance to go after their goals and put themselves on the line, um, is inspiring. And that kind of was the first time that this feeling of competing for your nation infiltrated my cells and my body. Because as a kid, that's what inspired me. It's like I see people out there inspiring me, and I want to do that. And what it'd be like to compete for your nation. But in the first two games, it was the first one especially was all about us and our team. I had no real concept of the greater picture. Vancouver was, the Whistler Vancouver community at large. It felt very much so. But being so far away in Sochi in Russia, I all of a sudden just felt this wave of Canada, of all those people across the country being, um, you know, inspired, being connected, be champions, and encouraging us out there. And they did this cool thing, the Canadian Olympic Committee, where they had letters. They went to different schools across the country and they got kids to write letters to the Olympians. And, when we arrived in Canada House, they had those letters waiting for us in the room. I mean, in not at our room, although everyone did get one specific one, but they had a bunch in like the common room. And so you could restart to read through these, and it doesn't take long when you hear a kid from, St. John, to Winnipeg to London, Ontario, to Red Deer. Um, you're like, whoa, this is a common thread here. This runs across the country, and those sort of things, I open myself up to being affected by them, to being moved by them, and I think that's the biggest thing I take away from Russia was like that was the first games, my third one, that I felt fully connected to Canada and what it means to compete for the country.
While competing in Sochi for your third Olympics, what was that moment like when you knew that this would be your last Olympics?
Yeah, good question. Um, I actually knew going before um, before the games. I was home in Whistler and had this like kind of magical moment, um, where I was actually out walking. I was at my house. The opening ceremonies had just happened, and like I said, the slalom, my event, happens 2 weeks after. So at the end, so I still was going to get on a plane the next day. Was going to Italy for a training camp, and then fly into Sochi. And I actually went for a hike. I watched the opening ceremonies, and I'm like trying to find the fire. Okay, let's go. What are we going to bring? And I had this totally out of body experience where this kind of this epiphany came that it was time that it was time to let go, that it was time to retire. And it's like a match going on in a dark room, and all of a sudden you can see, and it was a beautiful wave of um relief in a sense. So going to the games knowing already it was going to be my last, I think that's also what opened me up to really embracing everything that it means to be an Olympian for Canada. And then, at the for my event, I still I mean, I'm competitive to the bone, and like I still wanted a great result. I think I finished 16th, unfortunately, and I had a hard time, really letting go. I had a hard time racing to my full capacity. I was super I was super conflicted. It was like I was conflicted on, knowing I was going to retire, wanting to throw down my best, but you got to be, to compete with the best in the world, you got to be on. You got to be, willing to put everything on the line. I remember, I think it's a line, I don't know if from Lance Armstrong's podcast, I think. He was doing an interview, I think with Bodie Miller. I'm not sure if it's the same interview, but he talks about, you have your first kid and you're already your fingers on the brake, and you have your second and you got two fingers on the brake. And it almost felt like that, where I knew I was moving on, and that, that ability to put yourself fully down the fall line, um, fully in the face of, I mean, I say danger, but when you're in it, there's no danger. I mean, stuff can happen, but you're fully committed with everything you want in your body, like I was at World Championships in 2009. So yeah, it was conflicting. Honestly, it was like I mean, it was a beautiful experience, but it was definitely conflicting.
What was that feeling like getting to live out your Olympic dream and making it to 3 Olympics?
Uh, yeah, I think that comes with some reflection and time. I didn't have the answer to that for a while after I retired, and um, I think I learned with each year of what that means and what that feeling is. And at first it's sort of an egoic thing, like, oh, fuck yeah, I did that, like, um, and the further away I get from my career, I said it's an egoic thing. You feel like I did it, but the further away you realize, oh my God, like it's a collective. It's holy shit, we did that um as my parents and I, a family, the community that helped me, my coaches, like every coach that helped me along the way, as a national team, uh, as a sport, to produce a athlete that can achieve that. So I think that's the feeling. It starts out as like a fist pump, fuck yeah, to like absolute gratitude for um, for everything that was put into it.
While at the Olympics, what was that Mama I Made It moment like for you?
What was the what moment? Sorry,
Mama I Made It moment.
the sorry, say that again.
At the Olympics, what was that Mama I Made It moment like for you?
Um, yeah, huh, probably after I retired. Um, no, it was honestly it was Sochi. It was Sochi. I didn't genuinely feel like I made it until my last year of racing and at Sochi. And I think, I don't know, it's sad in one sense that you can go through it as an athlete and not feel like you've made it. But I think it's a really common thing. And it's one thing that kept me hungry too. It's like, you're always still trying to go. I mean, I don't think it's the healthiest way. If I were to do it again and work with athletes who do it, I hope that they feel like they made it, and there's probably more to get there. But that wasn't my experience. I didn't feel like I made it until almost near the end. In some sense, you know, on others, you you belong. That's maybe a different, because you walk around with a different sense of confidence at a World Cup amongst the best. But satisfying that itch that my 10-year-old self had, that kid was like, I want to do it, I want to make this. I truly feel it wasn't until Sochi, it wasn't until my third games that I felt like I made it.
Of course, how does it feel to have Olympian behind your last name and add OLY?
Yeah. It's something I don't think about too often in the sense of, it's me. It's like, okay, I'm just a regular person and one, we want to be boastful. But when I see, it's almost I see how special it is when I see it in others. And that's probably common, you see yourself reflected in others, but when I see some people that I really admire that have that, on their email signature, um, I was I was like, wow, that's remarkable. And to hold yourself in that own light feels really weird. But I had to let go of my own. I don't know if that's a weird ego or pride thing, but and you're like, yeah, this happened. This was really special, and I think it honors everyone who was part of this journey with me. So it's a little reminder um, for me that of yeah of all those of the community of everyone um, who was a part of it.
Of course, after the Olympics, what was that feeling like getting to put on that Canada Olympic ring and knowing that all of your hard work paid off?
Uh, I've only worn it a few times, not one for jewelry, although I have my wedding ring. That's about it. Um, but I remember the ceremony when they gave it, um, and that it's not like I probably put it on for that night, but that's you talk about feeling part of the club. There's a little bit of that, and that that's a cool class to be a part of. There's not what is there? How many Olympians under 500? I think in Canada in our history. Don't quote me on that, but I think maybe. Um, and so that's it. It almost is a bookend to it. I mean, not to a completion, but a period of to show that yeah that you're part of this class and um, it's something that connects everyone who's part of it.
What is that like, obviously, getting to meet your fans and sharing your experience with them and taking photos and autographs with them?
I love that part of uh, the showmanship of uh, being out there. Um, I love I love shooting the shit about ski racing. I love chatting about sport. I'm a fan of it as well, and so I always put myself in their shoes. And being a kid when the World Cup came to Whistler in the '90s, I remember going to get autographs from those athletes. And when Rob Boyd won in '88 in Whistler at the downhill, watching that. So I love I love being a fan of sport, or I am a fan of sport, and so I just enjoy connecting with them. Whether you're signing autographs, and sometimes sometimes it can get a little creepy. There was a few fans that followed the circuit and maybe crossed a few boundaries. Um, so there are realities to, you know, I mean, at times you have to put a barrier between you and the fans. But for myself, I wasn't that. I'm no Michaela Schiffer and Lindsey Vaughn. Bodie Herscher. Those probably have to put a lot bigger barriers between them and the fans. But yeah, for the most part, it's just a fun part of it, to engage with a group of people that love what you do and feel inspired by it. It energizes you.
What would you tell your younger self that was that kid at Whistler looking up to these Olympians?
It's always interesting because this question, because you're like, oh, be patient, be kind to yourself, trust the process. But I don't know if that's able to happen because you're young and you're like so, you know, hungry. Um, but there's definitely an element of it. It's be a little kinder to yourself. Um, it's gonna happen. But if you knew it would happen, would you would you be as hungry? Would you do all the work? Um, but I think the one thing is be open, be a little more open. I think at times in my career I closed down because you do get scared that it's not going to come, it's not going to happen. But you close yourself off to a lot of great things. So um, I think be open and be kind. Like it took me a while. I mean, ups and downs. Be kind to your teammates. Be kind to your coaches, your support staff. Um, I think that's a good reminder. I mean, I said kind to yourself too, but that's a little harder as a high performing athlete. It's part of what makes you great, although it's not the best solution. I'm sure there's an element to that, but be kind to the people around you who are helping make this possible.
Who are some of the people that you look up to in the sport of alpine skiing?
Now or as a kid? What do you think?
As a kid and then now?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, my sister for sure. Um, as a kid, like I looked up to Chitiel Andre Amat, Eddie Potovinsky, Tom Grandy, who then was a teammate, an incredible mentor for all the years. Um, Ted Ligety, I admired a ton, just for his competitiveness. Um, yeah, Marco Buchel from Liechtenstein. There's, I mean, again, like I said, I'm a fan, and so even getting to be out there, I was always, in awe of um, a lot of them. Uh, yeah, it was. There was a cool moment. Pernilla Wiberg was a huge. She's a Swedish athlete, won Olympic medals, one of the best to ever do it. And I looked up to her a ton as a kid, and then I got to sit on the FIS athlete commission with her, and with Shatil Andre Amat. So two of my childhood heroes, and then you're getting to sit on this athlete commission and on the FIS boards with them, and it's I got to tell them that, which is like, yeah, really, really cool. It's like, yeah, you get to share, and then they tell you who their idols were, and getting to meet their idols for the first time. It's yeah, that's pretty cool.
What was that transition like from you from going from being a professional athlete to now a book writer?
Um, yeah, the uh, I think yeah, I just published my first book and Go to the Star, which is a memoir of my career, and you know I always kept a journal, especially my last 4 years of my career. I kept a journal, and I knew that somewhere in me I wanted to write a book. So that was something that you're like, can I do this? Will I do this? But when I retired, so I knew I wanted to do it, I actually joined a writer's circle in Whistler. So I was like, okay, I have to learn how to write. And so it took a while. I joined a writer's circle for a couple of years. I did stand-up comedy, which was really good for my writing. I studied a lot of, interviews and how other comics wrote. I listened to interviews how other authors wrote. And I wrote some articles for ski racing magazines. So it was like kind of playing in that world. Um, and yeah, it was a fun transition because you get to relive your career and get to engage with other athletes and their stories and how what their perspective on it. We're talking to coaches again, so it was a Definitely, it's been a process, but it's been super fun, like really, really fun because it's a new skill, right? So,
How is that like, obviously, getting to write an autobiography about your professional skiing career?
mm, cathartic. It was very cathartic, and I think I gained a deeper perspective, a deeper understanding of what I went through from writing it, um, and getting to share it is, I mean, now it's just out, and so now getting to share it, getting to hear people's feedback, it makes it all the more special.
Of course, what was that feeling like getting to go on that book tour for your book, Go to the Start?
Well, it's just starting now. I'm just getting out there. We have like the Whistler Writers Festival coming up. I've done a few signings, so I'm yeah, kind of just in the uh uh starting process of it. But honestly, it's like connecting with connecting with people. It's super, super special. I was at a book signing the other day and someone came up and he started telling me his story of how he was ranked third in the world in tennis at 16 years old. And he played, he told me this match he played at this event um, against John McEnroe when he was a kid. And, and then he's like, buys my book and is reading that story. But I love hearing that stuff. So, I think that's the piece of connecting with people that would normally get to hear from, and getting to hear their experience of um, from reading the book as well.
Of course, what are some of your future plans in your career as a book writer?
I'd love to write. I got a couple more book ideas that I'd love to write. So I don't know exactly what they are, um, but yeah, I'm thinking I got a fun one that I want to write of stories from 2010 from different people. I think that would be really cool. But I'd like to also try my hand in some outside of sport, maybe fiction. So yeah, we'll see. But I'll definitely keep writing.
Of course, what advice would you give those people in college looking to ski in alpine skiing
Like on the World Cup or just in general?
in general?
Oh my gosh. Uh, stay warm. Stay warm. I don't like being cold. So dress appropriately, wear layers, and don't be scared to go in and warm up. But I think the most enjoyable thing about skiing, and any gravity sport, it's that connection you can make with the mountain, or connection you can make, when you're in harmony with when your movements are in harmony with nature, um, with the movement of the earth, of the mountain, using that terrain, flowing over top of it. It's so fun. So I think getting, you know, start like if you get any sense of that when you go up on the mountain, that's what you want to come back to. That's what you want to feel. So yeah, stay warm. Don't be a hero. Go inside and then enjoy the play with nature with the mountain.
What advice would you give those people that are looking to represent a national team, whether it's US or Canada?
Um, yeah, if it's U.S., defect obviously and come to Canada. No, uh, you know, yeah, if you have goals to reach your national team, I think one, all the power to you. That's fucking awesome. It's like um, what you learn along the way um, is instrumental. The fact that you have an outlet and a passion that you want to go towards, and then my piece would be yeah, there's let people help you. I think but you have to be vigilant too. There's people that want to help you and that get it. But then there's people that that don't get it, and they just want to help for, I don't know, they mean well, I guess, but they just, you can get pulled because you're doing something so special that so many people want to do. There's a lot of people that can come out that want to glom on to, I mean, they want to tag their success to your success or to the success of your team. And, sometimes they get in and whatever that happens. But I think you got to be pretty vigilant and just be, you want to stay open, like I said, but you have to know yourself well enough to know when someone's genuinely helping you, because that's so magical. And then sometimes some other people have self-interest that want to use you as a stepping stone. So I would say just, yeah, it almost feels contradictory to say it, because you want to be open, you want to let other people help you, but you got to be vigilant. You got to be switched on and trust your gut, um, on who you let into your inner circle.
What advice would you give those first-time Olympians versus those multiple-time Olympians such as yourself?
Uh, Sometimes I don't feel like I have any advice because there's people go to the games and win medals and for their first time and kill it way more than I did. Um, but I think the first it was I truly feel to let yourself. I mean, everyone's got to have their own desire and own um like their own goals, but being yeah, being open to being part of the team is, I think, essential. I mean, Bodie Miller, even between Torino and Vancouver, he had interviews leading into Vancouver saying that was his goal, to be more part of the team. And sure enough, he had 2 Olympic medals there. I think 2. Don't quote me on that, but I think 2. So I think be part of the team is, for anyone, is great.
What advice would you give those Olympians that are transitioning out of the sport that they love into life after the sport?
If you have the luxury of time, take the time. It's again, it's like everyone walks their own path, and I've had teammates do it in many different ways. Um, but if you have the time to reflect, take the time. And the one thing I know is, like, everything, all my friends who have transitioned out are successful in their own path. And just in that reflection, like, get to know your strengths, because those will carry you forward into whatever else you do. It's like, I, you're not reinventing yourself. You're just changing your clothes, and you still continue on in a different form, different, a different uniform, a different jacket, whatever you have, whatever you will. So, I think you rest assured that the attributes and the abilities that you have cultivated in sport, those stay with you. Those don't disappear. So,
What advice would you give Olympians such as yourself that are going through that process of writing their story of what they've experienced at the Olympics?
first, fuck yeah, more stories the better. I think the you know if you're able to get to the heart or get to the, like, core of what you want to say, it's so special. I mean, I had a book coach who helped me, and he said these words that carried me through it. He goes, "Know who you're writing it for, because if you write it for someone, it has a chance to connect with everyone. But if you try to write it for everyone, it's going to connect with no one." And so I would say, know who you're writing it for, and stay true to that. And that core message, um, will come through. And God bless editors because they do some they do the great job of polishing the work to let the shine come through.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with finding your book at?
Yeah, thanks. As Howard Stern likes to say, we're not here for our health, but to promote a little something. Uh, but no, we're to be able to share the book is amazing. I mean, you can find me at Mike Janyk on Instagram or michaeljanyk.com. I know I published as Michael Janyk for, I don't know, maybe I thought it was more of an author's name. But michaeljanyk.com, you can go check out there to find the book in any platform. But most, probably easiest, Amazon, go to the start is the name of the book. Your local bookstore, you can go order it. So, yeah, go check it out.
Thank you again, Mike Janyk, for your envy and best luck in your future wherever it may hold you.
Wicked. Thanks, Brandon.
You
All
can
the
find
best.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Mike Janyk, for your envy and best luck in your future.
Yeah.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.